Hi guys, hope you like this little story. If you want more similar stories to follow, leave a like and subscribe to my channel for continued content. Darkness feels different when you're dreaming. It doesn't surround you. It presses in, like it knows you. I'm in a warehouse, but not a real one. No signs, no noise, no dust. Just walls that breathe and a ceiling that goes on forever. There's a crate in front of me. Clean. White. Too clean for a place like this. I don't remember walking in. I never do. I step closer. My boots echo like I'm the only thing here that's alive. The crate's label is smeared. Oil. Maybe. Blood. Maybe. I wipe it with my sleeve. No name. No number. Just a black square. A perfect void. And then, it moves. Not the crate. The square. Like it's watching me. Or, remembering me. A voice speaks behind me. My voice. But wrong. It was already delivered. You were just the last to notice. I turn. No one. The crate's open. Something's inside. It looks like my alarm cuts through the dream like a bone saw. I sit up, sweating. Same dream again. Third time this week. The details change, but the feeling, that weight, stays the same. I check the time. 5:40 a.m. Early, even for me. The apartment is still. Dead quiet. Coffee helps. At least it gives me something to do with my hands. I stare out the window while the machine sputters and hisses behind me. Gray sky. Early light. First day at Nova Corp. Sounds like a promotion. Feels like a setup. Biggest company I've ever worked for. All departments sealed tighter than a vault. I haven't even seen a real org chart. Just code names and non-disclosures. Logistics, they said. Specialized procurement. The kind of work I've done before. For clients I don't talk about anymore. My last employer, Atlas Dine, used to call me invisible. Then 2 engineers died in a supply fire. Wrong parts, wrong place, wrong time. And somehow, it became my signature on the manifest. I never signed it. Never even saw that shipment come through. But that didn't stop the audit, or the internal freeze, or the blacklisting. That dream? It's not guilt. It's memory. And I'm starting to think it's not even mine. I throw on a jacket. The cold helps snap things into place. Time to meet NovaCorp. Time to act like I belong there. The streets outside are mostly empty. Monday still tastes like Sunday when it's this early. No one makes eye contact. Not that they ever did. In the window of a closed bakery, I catch my reflection. I don't recognize the look in my own eyes. I wonder if I ever really did. The lights inside the bakery flicked on just as I passed by. I hesitated. My stomach reminded me I hadn't eaten, and the coffee I'd had earlier was already losing the fight. I stepped inside. The warmth hit me first. Dry, rich air soaked with the scent of butter, yeast, and something sweet just pulled from the oven. It was a small place. Old, worn tiles. Wooden shelves lined with pastries that looked too perfect for how early it was. Someone had been up for hours. A bell above the door rang as I entered, sharp and real in a way most things weren't anymore. Behind the counter, a man moved with the kind of muscle memory that only comes from decades of routine. He didn't look up. He didn't need to. I was just another tired shape in a city full of them. I grabbed a croissant from the front display, still warm, soft at the edges, and poured myself a cup from the steel coffee urn behind the register. The smell was strong, the roast darker than what I kept at home. I drank it black. I always had. The first sip cut through the fog. The second started stitching me back together. I stood near the window while I ate, watching the quiet street through glass that had probably been replaced a dozen times but still felt like it belonged to an older version of the world. On the wall beside me, a faded photograph hung in a chipped frame. Black and white. This same bakery, sometime in the 60s. Same layout. Same bell. Even the counter looked identical. A line of customers in long coats stared out from the past, frozen in time, unaware they'd ever be remembered. Something about the picture stuck with me. A sense of repetition, or maybe just the weight of too many mornings like this one. I finished eating, wiped the crumbs from my hands, and checked the time. Still early. Nova Corp loomed ahead, and whatever came with it. The walk from the bakery to Nova Corp wasn't far. Maybe 15 minutes through the grid of clean sidewalks and silent storefronts that made up the district they called the Innovation Zone. Everything here was new. Concrete that hadn't cracked yet. Trees too young to cast real shade. Buildings with glass facades that watched you more than they reflected anything. I kept my pace steady, not too fast, not too slow, just enough to keep the blood moving. I found myself rehearsing. Miles Wren, Supply Operations. Happy to be here, looking forward to integrating with your systems. Lies, half-truths, and polished filler. The language of entry-level survival. Say enough to seem useful, not enough to stand out. That was the balance. I ran through my checklist in my head. Badge pickup at reception. Digital orientation on the 3rd floor. Logistics briefing at 9 o'clock with someone from internal movement. After that, I'd be assigned a clearance level and dropped into the stream like everyone else. I tried not to think about the dream again, or the message from a few nights ago that still sat unread in my inbox, unsigned and unsent. If they ask why you left Atlas Dine, stick to the talking points. I adjusted the strap on my bag, made sure I had my documentation ready. I'd triple-checked the forms. My credentials were clean. My resume had just enough redacted to make me interesting. One more block. The closer I got, the harder it became to focus. My mind drifted to schematics, shipping logs, phantom spreadsheets. I imagined the warehouses, the systems, the flows of data and material, all of it pulsing through corridors I hadn't seen yet. That part made sense to me. Numbers, movement, order people, less so. I rounded the last corner, and there it was. NovaCorp. Towering, silver, and silent. Every edge sharp, every surface watching. I stopped at the foot of the stairs and looked up. Time to step in. The stairs were shallow, wide, designed to make the building feel less imposing. It didn't work. With every step up, the silence thickened. No foot traffic, no idle chatter, just the low whine of the wind caught between glass towers. I reached the landing and stepped toward the main entrance. The doors opened before I touched them, motion sensors smooth enough to make it feel like intention triggered them. Inside, the temperature dropped. The air was dry, filtered, engineered to carry no scent. The lobby stretched upward into a cavern of polished steel and matte black panels. The ceiling curved like the inside of a lens. I couldn't tell where it ended. A digital display pulsed across the far wall. Soft white light against jet black tile. Moving graphics, data streams, procedural patterns, unplaceable imagery, abstract enough to seem meaningful, meaningless enough to avoid questions. I felt small. Everyone would. That was the point. A row of security gates waited ahead, brushed metal and glass barriers with biometric pads on either side. Behind them, a security desk flanked by scanners and black-suited personnel that moved like machines. I approached the ID terminal and pulled out the envelope they'd sent me 2 weeks ago. One card, one QR imprint, no instructions. I placed it against the scanner. It hummed once, then flashed green. A soft click as the gate unlocked. One step in, and the floor shifted, not physically, but perceptibly. A feeling in the soles of my feet. The material changed under me. Softer, quieter. Even footsteps were muted here. I passed by the reception island, a central structure shaped like a glass spindle. It displayed nothing. No names, no maps, just surface and light. I knew where I was going, or at least where I'd been told to go. Level 3, Orientation and Intake. The elevators waited in a curved alcove. No buttons, no floor numbers, just proximity sensors. As I stepped closer, one of the doors opened, silently, like it had been expecting me. I stepped in and faced the mirrored interior. My reflection looked calm, but that wasn't how I felt. The elevator sealed behind me without a sound. No motion, no numbered panel lighting up, just the soft hum of energy around the edges. For a moment, I wasn't sure we were moving at all. Then came that shift, like pressure smoothing out behind my eardrums, like gravity adjusting itself by degrees. We were moving, fast, probably magnetically elevated, sealed in a vacuum channel, quiet enough to feel holy. My mind started racing. I couldn't help it. NovaCorp was full of rumors. Quantum acceleration labs, AI-run deep logistics, materials grown in vacuum environments. The kind of stuff you didn't see unless you signed the kind of paperwork that followed you into your next life. If even half of it was true, I was walking into the most advanced tech ecosystem on the planet. And now I was part of it. For a second, I forgot the dreams, forgot Atlas Dine, Forgot everything except the lift of adrenaline rising with the cabin. This was what I'd always wanted, a front-row seat to the machinery of the future. The elevator slowed so smoothly I didn't notice until the doors parted. Level 3. Intake. The hallway was white, not blank, but deliberate. The walls curved gently inward, lighting hidden in the seams. The floor absorbed sound, but not sensation. I could feel the subtle weight of the space around me, like every detail was measured and optimized. She was standing just ahead, near a glass console that curved out from the wall like part of the architecture. Tall, composed, dark hair pulled back in a precise line that matched the clean edges of her suit. But it was her eyes that caught me. Dark green, sharp, unmistakably alert, like she was reading the room and writing a report at the same time. She didn't look like someone you met at a desk. She looked like someone who'd already read your file. I straightened my shoulders without meaning to. Something about her presence demanded it. She looked at me, eyes locking for half a breath longer than necessary. And just like that, I knew this place was going to be nothing like I expected. She turned as I approached. No words, just a nod and a slight tilt of her head toward the hallway. A gesture that said follow, without saying anything at all. I did. The corridor stretched longer than expected, but I barely noticed. I was too busy cataloging everything. The seamless panels, the soft pulse of data traveling just under the walls, the scent of sterilized air. This wasn't just a place of work. It was a system. A living, breathing organism of code, light, and structure. And I was walking into one of its veins. We reached a chamber that looked like the inside of a circuit diagram, geometric shapes built into the walls, semi-transparent panels flickering with moving data. No chairs, no paper, just a central platform with a pulsing interface hovering a few inches above it. She stepped aside, just enough for me to take the hint. I moved to the platform, placed my badge where the light centered. A soft pulse moved up through my arm. Some kind of biometric read. Nothing painful. Just a reminder that I was now part of something measurable. The room responded. Walls came alive with cascading visualizations, supply flow networks, planetary distribution maps, core system structures. It was like being inside a dashboard built for gods. A calm voice, genderless, digital, ran through basic protocols, clearance confirmation, safety statements, role parameters. Legalese folded into rhythm. I listened, but part of me was still watching her out of the corner of my eye. She hadn't moved, still watching, not in a casual way, in a way that logged, assessed, calculated. When the briefing ended, the lights dimmed. The display shut itself down in clean silence. She turned again, and without a word, began walking. I followed. Through corridors that curved gently like a perfect maze. Past sealed doors and subtle labels. Lab Sector 1A, Simulative Logistics, Biofeedback Control. Names that meant nothing yet, but stirred something in the gut. She moved like someone with purpose. Not rushing, not lingering. Every step part of an algorithm. I still hadn't said a word. Didn't need to. Whatever came next, I was already inside. The workspace they assigned me was on Level 4, Supply Integration and Flow Management, as it read on the directory. The glass door hissed open as I approached, and I was hit with a wave of silence so total it felt engineered. My office was clean. Too clean. A monolithic desk sat in the center, curved just slightly toward the wall-to-wall screen behind it. No drawers, no keyboard, no sign of anyone who'd worked here before. Just a surface that woke at the touch of my badge. The interface lit up. Deep blue, soft amber accents, smooth transitions, predictive inputs. I'd worked on hundreds of systems, but nothing this elegant. Everything responded without friction. File trees bloomed with a thought. Inventory schematics folded out like paper models and snapped back with a flick. I spent the next few hours getting oriented, reviewing manifests, cross-checking delivery patterns, setting up custom filters. The datasets were massive, global, even orbital, but they behaved like they already knew what I wanted. Everything matched. No red flags, no conflicts, just clean data and cleaner architecture. That was the first sign, though I didn't recognize it at the time. No system that size runs without friction. But I wasn't looking for cracks, not yet. At the end of the shift, the interface powered down as I stood. I hadn't told it to. It just knew. The hallways were quieter now. The lights dimmed slightly at the corners, artificial dusk in an artificial world. I didn't see her again, the woman from intake, but I hadn't expected to. I left through the lobby the same way I entered, with silence. The streets outside had changed. Not in shape, but in tone. The shadows were longer, the wind colder. Or maybe I was just starting to feel it again, the weight of something I hadn't noticed inside. I walked home. Looking back on it now, I can see how easily I let myself be pulled in. The precision, the silence, the way the systems made me feel efficient, valued, invisible but indispensable. That first day, I thought I'd found something close to perfect, the kind of order I'd chased my whole career. I didn't know, then, that perfection was the first lie. The real story didn't begin with that first day. Not really. It began with what came after. The slow, subtle drift. The way the seams started to show, one by one, like threads pulling loose on a suit tailored too tight. At first, it was small things. A supply requisition that didn't align with the manifest. A discrepancy in container weights, written off as sensor lag. A missing timestamp in a chain that shouldn't have had gaps. I'd spent enough time in logistics to know when data lied. But this wasn't lying. This was something worse. The data told the truth, but only the version it wanted me to see. And then came the shipments. Unscheduled arrivals. Exotic composites. No point of origin. Materials with designations I'd never encountered, routed through departments I didn't have access to. I flagged one, once. It was cleaned from the system before the end of the day. Not deleted, cleaned. Like it had never existed. That was when I started saving screenshots, off-network, locally stored, encrypted under layered aliases. I stopped trusting my terminal, stopped using my name in internal messages, began cross-referencing manifests against public satellite logs. It didn't make sense, the volumes, the frequency, the encryption around every part of the chain. Each day, I found something else, some new fracture beneath the surface, some shift in the pattern that shouldn't have been there. And still, I showed up, sat at my desk, swiped my badge, smiled when they passed in the halls. Because I didn't know yet who was watching, or how much they already knew about me. The nightmare came again. Different setting, same message. I was somewhere vast, dark, and humming with power. The air pulsed. Time didn't move normally in there. Shapes formed and disappeared before I could recognize them. I wasn't alone, but nothing ever made itself known. Just the presence of something watching, not from across the room, but from some angle reality wasn't built to account for. When I woke up, the sheets were twisted like I'd been fighting off sleep itself. But that day was different. I was clear, laser-focused. My mind didn't drift or stagger under the weight of suspicion like it had in the days before. The fatigue that clung to my muscles since I started at Nova Corp had faded overnight, replaced by a steadiness I hadn't felt in years. Like I'd finally leveled out in the atmosphere of this place. Like I was syncing with something. I didn't like that thought, but it fit too well to ignore. The routine helped. The walk, the quiet, the same early hour, same light traffic. The bakery again. Coffee. No words this time. Just a nod from the man behind the counter and the smell of roasted beans clinging to the corners of the room. I carried the heat with me in a paper cup as I made my way across the district. Nova Corp loomed as always, glass and chrome and shadow. The entrance opened as I approached, like it remembered me. The same gentle hush of climate-controlled air, the same silent acknowledgement of my badge as I passed through the gates. The building swallowed sound the way deep water swallows light. It still felt like entering another dimension. Level 4. My workspace. The system booted before I sat down. The day unfolded in seamless progression. Manifests, requisitions, flow simulations, routing corrections. No glitches, no irregularities, just precision. Data humming along rails built for certainty. The illusion of control. And for once, I didn't question it. I let myself operate without resistance. Looking back, I realize now that's exactly what they wanted. I worked through midday without noticing. The CAF alert came up on the far wall. I dismissed it. Hunger was secondary. Efficiency had taken over. When I finally stood, it was to stretch, not eat. That's when I noticed the shift. One of the routing maps displayed a subsystem labeled Deep Core Infrastructure, sub-level -10. I hadn't seen that designation before. Not in any of the system diagrams I'd been trained on. Not in the access briefings. At first, I thought it was a mislabel, some internal nickname for a data archive cluster. But then I looked closer. The shipping flow showed hardware, heavy, compartmentalized, shielded, tagged with obscure material IDs I didn't recognize. Directional routing indicated inbound movement, not up to the surface, down, to sub-level -10. That deep? That's not storage, that's containment. I flagged the map, encrypted the snapshot, and buried it in one of my offline nodes. No trace on the company logs. I was careful now. I had to be. I didn't try to access the sub-level. Not yet. I knew better than to trip the wire. Instead, I pulled every peripheral reference I could find. Systems connected to sub-level -10 included thermal regulators, kinetic dampeners, field calibration logs. Some of the files were redacted even at my clearance level. Others weren't just redacted. They were ghost files, placeholders with no parent directory. That's when I started the second archive. I told myself it was just for research, just for the audit trail. I didn't believe that, not even then. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I went through the motions, reviewed logs, answered check-ins, pretended everything was ordinary. I'd gotten good at that. At 18:05, the system signed me out automatically. I let the rhythm of the day carry me back through the elevators, out past the reception field, and into the night. The air outside felt warmer than it should have. The city was soft with light pollution and the quiet hum of vehicles sliding through managed traffic corridors. I walked home, not really seeing the street in front of me, just running that word again and again in my head. Sub-level -10. Not long after that, things began to accelerate. It started slow, like a pattern I couldn't quite name forming behind my work. Every day I saw the systems responding faster, anticipating more. The routing software began suggesting materials before requisitions were even submitted. Timestamps began to show temporal inconsistencies, items arriving minutes before they were logged or even requested. I brought it up once, quietly, during a weekly sync with our internal coordinator. They brushed it off as preloading protocols, predictive modeling. But I knew logistics. Predictive systems don't fabricate approval chains. From that point on, I stopped asking questions out loud. Instead, I watched, carefully, from the margins, letting the system show its seams, because it was starting to. Not often, not obviously, but enough. Documents with timecodes from unreleased frameworks, requisition entries that bore timestamps from days ahead, packages routed to departments that didn't exist yet. That was the part that caught me. Didn't exist yet. It sounded insane, impossible, but I kept seeing it. New designations appearing in the system days before official announcement, old divisions showing up in the planning infrastructure, then vanishing until days or weeks later when they were officially launched. Somewhere in that window, the name appeared again. Sub-level -10. This time it wasn't a routing node. It was listed as the destination for a full architecture payload. Prototype cores, experimental lattice work, a crate labeled Orpheus Frame 7. The design tags on it were months ahead of anything in production. It didn't add up, not unless someone was building faster than time allowed. I became obsessed with sub-level -10. It wasn't on the official maps, it wasn't on the emergency schematics, but it existed. The data showed that much. The shipments, the signatures, the internal references. And one night, after everyone else had gone home, I stayed late, waited until the floor was empty, used a contractor badge I'd cloned from a careless field tech 2 days prior. I took the elevator past level 0. And it kept going. No lights, just numbers changing on a black panel. -1, -2, -3. By -8, I felt it. A change in the air. Thicker, quieter, like the pressure had increased. At -9, the elevator stopped. Not a full stop, a shudder, like something paused it. And then, without sound, it dropped one more level. -10. The doors opened into darkness. And I saw it. The machine. Massive, silent, incomplete, or maybe just dormant. An array of rings, each nested within the next, like an artificial black hole held in suspension. Light clung to it, refused to escape. Panels of translucent fiber shimmered with unreadable symbols. The entire chamber pulsed with an inaudible frequency I felt in my teeth. I wasn't supposed to be there. That much was obvious. The entire space felt wrong, like the kind of secret the world wasn't meant to carry. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, an hour. Time folded inside that place. When I left, I didn't bring anything with me. No data, no proof. Just 1,000 questions, and one impossible image burned into memory. And the beginning of a suspicion. Maybe NovaCorp wasn't building the future. Maybe it was stealing it. Whatever the machine was, I knew this much. It was watching me back. After that night, everything changed. I kept up appearances. Same walk to work, same desk, same empty coffee cup beside the terminal. But beneath the routine, my mind had become a different kind of machine. Always running, always analyzing, trying to reconcile what I had seen with what I still pretended to believe. I started cataloging everything. Not just manifests or schematics, but behavior, patterns, how teams moved, what floors people accessed, which elevators lit up and which never opened. There were people I saw daily but never spoke, faces I recognized but couldn't place, entire clusters of employees who didn't exist in the personnel database. I was becoming paranoid, or maybe I was finally paying attention. There were moments I thought they knew. I'd catch glances from glass reflections, catch my own screen flicker when it shouldn't have. Once, I found my second archive slightly altered. Nothing erased, just cleaned, aligned, as if someone had visited and decided to make it more presentable. The worst part was that they left it there, letting me know. Whatever NovaCorp was, it didn't need to silence me. It needed me complicit. And I still was. I was still showing up, still punching the badge, still feeding the machine. Until one day, the woman from intake appeared again. I hadn't seen her since orientation. I assumed she'd been reassigned or was never meant to interact with me beyond that day. But there she was, standing outside the break room, watching the corridor like it might shift into something else. She looked at me, not surprised, not curious, just fixed. And she nodded. It wasn't a greeting. It was permission. The next morning carried a strange stillness, the kind that lingered in the air, waiting for something to break it. I followed my usual path, watched the same sky thicken over the skyline, past the same bakery with its warm window light. But even routine has edges, and that day, I felt them. At my desk, the system was already active, waiting. The screen glowed like it always did, clean and welcoming, as though it hadn't watched me descend 10 levels into classified dark space less than 48 hours earlier. I sat down, nodded through the startup sequence, and began my rounds, inventories, flows, sync patterns, auto-routing. Everything worked. Nothing glitched, no alerts, no red flags, not even a flicker. And yet, something inside me was buzzing, a dull charge beneath the skin, like a magnet tugging at my bones. Maybe it was the fear, or maybe it was the machine, that impossible machine I'd seen suspended in that void of a chamber, nested rings spinning around an absence of light. It hadn't moved, it hadn't made a sound, but it had felt alive, felt like it had seen me. I was halfway through a cycle report when the system paused. Just for a second. The terminal froze, then blinked, then resumed. And I knew. I wasn't alone. She stepped into my office without a sound. The woman from orientation. Same dark suit, same dark green eyes, still unreadable. I hadn't seen her since the first day, and somehow, I had known I would again. I just didn't expect it to be today. She stood across from me, still as a statue, watching me the way a firewall watches for intrusion. Then she asked me if I had been in any restricted areas. The way she said it, quiet, even, like it was just part of some protocol she'd repeated 100 times, made my skin crawl more than if she had shouted. I didn't answer right away. My mouth stayed closed, my breathing even. But inside, everything had shifted. She didn't ask me again. She didn't need to. Then she said I should think carefully about who was watching. That was all. She turned and walked away as if nothing had happened. I sat there, frozen. I could still feel the echo of her words crawling inside my thoughts. She didn't mean personnel. She didn't mean corporate security. She meant something else. And I knew what. The machine. It was watching. It had always been watching. The rest of the day was a blur. I stared at reports and didn't read them. Clicked through screens I didn't understand. My hands moved, but I wasn't there. I couldn't be. I replayed that moment again and again. Her voice, her eyes, her choice of words. Not a warning, but a test. And I'd failed, or passed. Maybe both. That night, I didn't go home. I walked the city for hours. Not to think. Thinking was impossible. But to breathe. To keep moving so nothing could settle in. I ended up somewhere near the transit lines, sitting under the slow swirl of sky drones. I thought about disappearing, leaving it all, but it was too late for that. They already had their hooks in me. The next day, I returned as if nothing had changed, as if I hadn't been seen, as if I wasn't unraveling slowly in silence. But inside, I had crossed a line. I started watching everything. People, movements, doors that didn't open for anyone, lights that flickered in precise patterns, shadows that fell where no light source should have been. I started keeping logs, not just of system anomalies but of human ones. People who should have been in meetings showing up 2 floors down. Maintenance workers with clearance to places I couldn't access. Notes left in system comments that felt like code. I was building a second map, a mental one, of how things really flowed in Nova Corp. Not just data, not just material, but control. It wasn't long before I found those names. Or a column. Divergence Core. Names that meant nothing in public channels but echoed somewhere deep in the private mesh. I followed the trails. Requisition routes, delivery markers, unlisted nodes. Most of it didn't make sense. Some of it shouldn't have existed. Materials marked unclassified but with energy designations I'd never seen. Devices routed through sub-level -10 and then erased. Entire shipments that vanished without ever reaching their endpoint. It all pointed back to the same place. The machine. And I wasn't the only one chasing it. The message came quietly. Not through official lines. Not through the encrypted drive I used at home. It appeared in the internal admin log, tucked between test lines. A ghost message. The past is overwritten. The future is stored. Level -10 is neither. No name. No trace. But someone else was watching too. I stopped trusting the systems. I stopped trusting time. More and more often I would look at the clock and realize 20 minutes had passed that I couldn't account for. Files appeared in my logs with my signature, but no memory. Even code, actual scripting, I didn't remember writing, matched my patterns. It was like the machine was reaching into me, testing me, building something through me, using me the way it used data, bent into shape. And then the dreams came again. But not dreams. I knew that now. Schematics, details, circles within circles, a coil structure that rotated against itself without moving. I'd wake with the words temporal resonance echoing through my skull. No idea how they'd gotten there. I didn't report it. Of course I didn't. Who would I report it to? Everyone was playing a part here, including me. Then she returned. The same woman. No words this time. Just a small card placed on my desk. No logo. No code. But I could feel what it was the second I touched it. It hummed. An elevator override. Access below sublevel -10. I didn't ask what it meant. Because somehow, I already knew. The card she left on my desk changed everything. There were no instructions, but I knew what it meant. I knew where it went. That night, after the building thinned out and only the hum of static lighting remained, I took the elevator down. Below sublevel -10. The override worked without delay. A new number appeared on the control panel. X. It pulsed softly. A designation I hadn't seen in any file, schematic, or floor plan. It wasn't a level. It was a domain. The ride down felt longer this time. Time itself slowed inside that elevator. Not metaphorically, physically. The sensation of seconds lagging, as if passing through molasses. When the doors opened, the light was different. Lower. As if bent. I stepped out and the world shifted around me. Instead of the machine, I found a room, surgical in design, seamless, clinical. At the center, a thin man in a tailored slate gray jacket waited. He looked at me like I was expected, like I had always been meant to arrive. He gestured toward a translucent table with a single chair. I sat down. Without introduction, he told me I'd been promoted. Just like that. Effective immediately. Chief Classification, Office of Experimental and Temporal Anomalies. No vote, no request, just a transition. I would now report only to strategic oversight. He said there was no concern about my knowledge anymore. I'd passed what they called threshold acceptance. He activated the surface of the table. A schematic lit up. Rings, spirals, a dense void at the center, wrapped in light that didn't behave like light should. He explained that the machine was a stabilized singularity, a controlled collapse, real and operational. What I had seen before had only scratched the surface. Through it, they could read proximity futures. Not guesses, not models, echoes, probabilistic projections woven from adjacent temporal strata. The data wasn't predicted, it was retrieved. Patterns of what would happen, if left untouched, extracted before entropy intervened. He said it like he had said it 1,000 times. The designs weren't inventions, they were inevitabilities. I was told that I would be responsible for cross-departmental anomaly resolutions. Any situation where divergence became unstable would be routed through my office. Then he stood up and told me that was all. The light dimmed, and he walked out, leaving me alone with the schematic still glowing in faint, pulsing blue. The promotion took hold instantly. No ceremony, no congratulations. One moment I was nothing, the next I was part of the core. My new office was featureless. No windows, no identifiers. No one walked past it. My badge changed color. Doors opened that hadn't opened before. I was granted access to Oraculum-level data nodes. I spent the first 2 days just reading and unraveling. We were drawing more than ideas. We were drawing histories, systems, materials, partials, sometimes whole people. Nothing ever came fully formed, but the fragments were enough. Enough to build, to adapt, to mimic. But the system wasn't clean. It was degrading. I started seeing inconsistencies in the personnel logs. Repeats, misalignments, loopbacks. People logged as present in multiple locations. Decisions being executed before they were drafted. An engineer came to my door asking for clarification on a schematic I hadn't read yet. I told him I hadn't received it. He looked confused. Said I'd signed off on it yesterday. And then he left like it was normal. I requested full incident reports. They weren't classified anymore. I had clearance. They called them resonance events, failures of coherence. Like our reality was having trouble deciding which version it wanted to be. Each one was written up clinically, sanitized, brushed aside. I saw the machine again. This time, active. The gimbal rings moved against themselves, not according to physics but something deeper. I watched them through the reinforced observation window. Noted how the chamber bent around it, subtle shifts in density, in light diffusion. It wasn't just a structure. It was a gate, and we were pulling through it. The data wasn't coming from our future. It was coming from a future, a corridor of potential outcomes. We were skimming off timelines, siphoning futures. And the more we pulled, the more I saw it. Something was wrong. Other departments reported shadows in their records, projects initiated by teams that didn't exist, facilities referenced in logs that hadn't been built yet, supply chains routing to fictional endpoints. One entry stopped me cold. Site 17. Listed as archived. The report was fragmented, corrupted, but some lines survived. Causal degradation. Divergence phase cascade. Collapse confirmed. It didn't explain. It didn't apologize. Just cataloged the death of a reality. I spent nights reviewing datasets. I compared overlapping project files and found divergences not just in content, but in origin. Documents with conflicting metadata, as though two identical but separate people had written them. Sometimes the names matched mine. The truth was becoming unbearable. Each time we extracted knowledge, we cut something off from its home. Somewhere, in some adjacent world, events changed, paths collapsed, outcomes diverged into failure. It was like watching the universe cannibalize itself one echo at a time. I found footage, a clip buried in the Oraculum archive. A man, almost identical to me, stood in one of our conference rooms, screaming into a dead camera, his face twisted with fear, fury, desperation. He was pleading. He said we had to stop, that every extraction was a theft, that we were killing the future to feed the present. Then the footage glitched. and ended. They called it corrupted. But I knew better. I couldn't look away from the spiral any longer. I couldn't be part of it. I filed my resignation. There was no resistance, no attempt to keep me, just a silent form, signed and recorded. When I left the building, I didn't look back. But the memory came with me. The curve of the machine, the feel of the ringed chamber pressing against the rules of time and matter. And the knowledge I couldn't shake. The more we take, the more realities die. And if they keep pulling, eventually there will be nowhere left to pull from. No future. Only us. Surrounded by the echoes of the ones we destroyed. That was 3 years ago. Today, I stood where NovaCorp used to be. I took the train out, half out of instinct, half out of something I still don't have a name for. The skyline had shifted. I thought I was lost until I checked the map 3 times. No error. Right street, right coordinates. But it wasn't there. No tower. No black glass. No perimeter. No security nodes. Just a vacant lot overgrown with weeds and gravel, as if nothing had ever stood there. A space so blank it felt surgical, like someone had removed not just a building, but the memory of one. No one around me reacted. The people walking by didn't slow. They didn't look twice. Whatever NovaCorp had been, it was gone. No trace. Even the air felt wrong. I walked the perimeter of the lot 3 times, tried to feel something, recognize something. I couldn't. And yet, there was a pulse beneath the silence, a quiet hum I couldn't place, like a tone just beyond the reach of human hearing. It vibrated in my teeth. I don't know what happened to the machine. Maybe they buried it. Maybe it collapsed in on itself. Maybe it was never here in the first place. Or maybe it moved on. To another site, another version, another thread of reality where someone else is just beginning to realize what it means to pull from the future. I stood there for a long time. And then I turned and walked away. Not because I was finished, but because I finally understood. Some absences are permanent. Some truths are meant to be carried, not chased. And some machines, no matter how far you run, never really let you go.